Another Four Swords game was brought to us by Capcom once again, associated very closely with Nintendo just as they had been for the Oracles. The fourth and final escort title I'm going to place is what sets the Four Swords games into motion, the Minish Cap. Now, I've heard many theories placing this game in Hyrule B, and I do find some merit in that theory. The Hero of Men from Minish Cap's prologue could easily be the first king of the new Hyrule. This would imply that the king had unified the land, and thus is the father of the so-called original Princess Zelda of the new Hyrule. However, there's one very strong inconsistency of this. The king is said to have unified the land by means of the Triforce, not the Pickery Blade. The Triforce in the Hyrule of Minish Cap is shrouded in mystery, referred to by rumors as the Triumph Force or possibly the Light Force, very similar nicknames for the Triforce that were used in the Wind Waker. However, consider this. It could also be so very early in Hyrule's established history that the Triforce has not been discovered or honored in consistent mythology. Realize that it could take some time for the legend of the Triforce and the mythology behind it, and it may not have become common knowledge until a few generations had passed after this. Now, again, Capcom's escort titles are far more ambiguous and far more difficult to decisively place than every Mothership Zelda title. So within reason and logic, you can place them virtually anywhere as long as certain criteria are met. Some of the things that I've seen put them all in consecutive order, either at the start of the timeline, or in the middle of Hyrule A or Hyrule B. All that to say that within reason, the Four Swords games, the Oracle games, and Link's Awakening could be placed in a variety of areas. It's not really important to argue about them. Just for the purposes of my mold and the least discrepancies that I can possibly come up with, this is where I place them. But here's my reasoning of why I think Minish Cap belongs first in the timeline. It has nothing to do with Link's hat, because he already had the green tunic as well, which is another big trademark of the hero. The reason I think Minish Cap belongs first is at the very beginning of the game. The bound chest sealed by the Pickery Sword. This chest contains the monsters that plague the land in every Zelda title onwards. It explains why there are monsters in Hyrule, and why nobody seems to pay them any mind in future titles. They're just a norm that came with the land. Where it's made a big deal in this one, where they're released from the chest. Now, I have a theory as to where these monsters came from, which I'll go over in a second, and you might be interested to know that my theory comes from a game that isn't even out yet. Now, I do think I need to address this point. One of the most popular split timelines on YouTube, created by Ocarina Hero 10, states that the Pickery Sword is the Master Sword. This is a point that I disagree strongly with, because the Pickery Sword and the Master Sword are both well documented, both in mythology and in abilities. So much so to the point that these two blades are not the same. They're not. Now, I do like a few aspects about his timeline though, such as the importance of the hero's shade in Twilight Princess, and the strong implications that it's Link, the hero of time. And I do think it helps to solidify my placement of Twilight Princess. Anyways, that's the gist of the escort titles now, and thus every official Zelda game made up to this point. Now, one last thing before I conclude. A lot of you have been asking about where I think the latest Zelda game, Skyward Sword, will fit into the timeline. Well, I'm going to explain what little we know about the plot so far. The game's main item, the Skyward Sword, is said to become the Master Sword sometime during the game. And with this in mind, we already know that it has to take place before Ocarina of Time. But let's look a little bit further. We also know that there are two regions in the game. The first is the Cloud Kingdom of Skyloft, which is an island floating in the sky. The second region is on the mainland below, and it turns out to be Hyrule. Now this could explain that the civilized race of Hylians originated from Skyloft, possibly being related to the Uka from Twilight Princess as well. The mainland of Hyrule is said to be run by evil forces in this game, possibly implying that this is before the area became the kingdom itself, in which case, this would be the very first Zelda title, the founding of the kingdom, and the forming of the Master Sword. This chain of events would then lead to the Hero of Men sealing the monsters away and beginning the adventures of the Minish Cap generations afterward. Now, while the latter part of my summary was speculation, we do know that this will be one of the earliest pieces of the timeline, if not the earliest. So with that in mind, to all of you who are saying that Skyward Sword might screw up my whole timeline, I rather doubt it. I would put it somewhere before Ocarina of Time, possibly before Minish Cap. Now, I for one hope that Nintendo does manage to fit together every game flawlessly, but every time another one is made to bridge gaps more formed. Now, I will say that I've enjoyed the nearly 2.5 years of theorizing here on YouTube. I do hope everyone, splittist or linearist, can come to an agreement that this series will probably never have a set-in-stone sequence of events, and that in the end, it probably will all be up to perception. But I hope you've all enjoyed this retrospective, and I look forward to any comments or video responses to the subject. With that said, this is Lancun, wishing you all well for the final time in my Legend of Zelda timeline retrospective. Oh, and before I go, I leave you all with a question. Trudge2097 has shown interest in the idea of a sort of online convention, where some of the biggest Zelda theorists on YouTube are going to come together and do live discussion of the timeline, with you all watching. He's the one with the idea, so I'd address all of your feedback on the subject to him. We're wondering if we should just use some sort of streaming website to accomplish this, or we might use a different method that's similar in function. If any of you have any ideas for this online convention, direct all of your concerns and ideas to him. It'd be interesting to have a sort of meeting of the minds between us all. Anyways, on that note, take care, everyone.